to the show. I hope you had a fantastic weekend and happy President's Day. Obviously, other shows are taking it off, but we, because we care about the American people, the American ideals, and just Western civilization more broadly, are happy to be here with you on this auspicious of President's Days. It is interesting having President's Days when different administrations are in power. I think I've just noticed, I'm happy this President's Day. Let us know, tpt@tpusa.com, if you happen to be a little bit more joyful this President's Day as opposed to President's Days of the past. And then, it goes disappointed, then happy, then a time period of disappointment, then you're happy again. Just a thought. I'm curious if that's happening to you. But like I said, you can email us, tpt@tpusa.com, anytime you want. That is the email address. You can also leave a comment wherever it is that you happen to be watching this. And remember, if those emails are disgusting, bigoted, vile in all nature, we actually will probably read them on the show, because that's the sort of thing we like around here. It fits right in with the vibe, according to a bunch of the lib people that, call us mean names. That's exactly what we do here, is just awful terribleness. So if that email, tpt@tpusa.com, or a comment is awful and terrible, good chance of actually being read here on the show. Now, I realize it's a Monday and people are getting back into the flow of things, and even the fact that it's a holiday, it's not exactly the day where you want to be biting off these massive chunks of necessary ideological disagreement, but that is unfortunately the position we find ourselves in after the Munich conference, which I think is actually still going on technically, where Senator Rubio gave a fantastic speech, and AOC also talked, as well as Governor Newsom and several other people who we'll get to later on in the show. As that's going on, what we know is actually happening is not these policy disputes, although of course those are there. It's not like the financial stability of the globe as it interacts with the United States economy and how it's trying to fit in. All of those things are being talked about. But what is really at the heart of all of this is Western civilization more broadly. What is at the core of every single global argument or debate or conversation is the overall Western civilization discussion. Is Western civilization a good thing? What is Western civilization? If it goes away due to the fact that Europe let in a gazillion third worlders into the country, is that a bad thing? I happen to think yes, but really what took shape at the Munich Security Conference is that discussion, and it really took place in many parts between two individuals. One being a former bartender, the other being a Secretary of State and former senator. The bartender also is a social media influencer. Oh, and has a vote in Congress, too. I keep forgetting that part. Congresswoman AOC didn't face off in the traditional sense with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, but the different talks they both gave effectively were a rhetorical battle with one another, even if it wasn't necessarily in the same time sequence. What she was saying is pushing what I believe was an anti-Western civilization philosophy. And what Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, was pushing was, hey, we have to defend Western civilization because look around us. There's electricity in the building, among many other fascinating and fabulous things that the Western world has brought to, well, all of the Western world. Those two things were what were in opposition in Munich. Yeah, the policy stuff. Yeah, the financial stuff. But what we're really talking about, when the important thing that needs to be discussed and hammered out, especially at levels like that, is whether or not Western civilization is worth saving and worth defending. What is it? Do we want to keep it? Of course, my answer is yes, but I'd like to go back and forth between the former bartender and the Secretary of State and try and figure out for ourselves, well, what is this thing that we want to hold on to? Should we hold on to it? What are the ramifications of if we don't hold on to it? We'll start off with an opening salvo, and these aren't in chronological order as a timeline goes, but they just make sense in more of a conversational dialogue component. So this is the former bartender AOC discussing what she believes our culture is, and possibly whether or not it should be upended. How deeply rooted is Western civilization? Here's AOC's answer, clip 6.
But, I think it's also important to note how thin that foundation is. Culture is changing. Culture always changed. Culture for the entire history of human civilization has been a fluid, evolving thing that is a response to the conditions that we live in. And so they want to take this mantle of culture. At the end of the day, though, it is very thin.
Couple things we have to get to here first. One, I'm not entirely sure what she means by culture. For some reason, a bunch of libs think culture means, well, cool, the fun, interesting foods that come from around the world. Rowan Atkinson did a fantastic bit about this where he effectively said, hey, now that we have all the recipes, maybe we can send the people back that don't actually share the cultural values, because that's what we're talking about when we're talking about culture. We're not talking about the music and the cool little Latin rhythm or, eating tacos or whatever, wherever you come from around the world. That isn't actually what culture is. Those are components, but what culture is a way of organizing your life. It's a way of living. It's a way of being in a society that has a culture. And so I never quite understand what libs say when they say, well, now culture is evolving. Yeah, technology is evolving, but human nature has been pretty rock solid in its place since the dawn of time. That's kind of the whole thing that we're trying to discover in the West is what is human nature and how do we circumnavigate within the confines of what human nature is. But to the point of, well, it's actually very thin. Western civilization is it's very barely there. It kind of just popped up and wasn't really around, and now it's here. But if it goes away, that's not super bad. Okay, well, what does Marco Rubio have to say about the thinness of the civilization that effectively built the world, not only the West, but the entire world? What does he have to say about that? Cut 7.
For 5 centuries, before the end of the Second World War, the West had been expanding. Its missionaries, its pilgrims, its soldiers, its explorers pouring out from its shores to cross oceans, settle new continents, build vast empires extending out across the globe.
Oh, shoot, that doesn't seem very thin. And I don't think he even captured the expanse of it. He said 5 centuries, that's 500 years. That I would argue that Western civilization goes back far further than that, probably 5 centuries before Christ even. You start having philosophers come up with ideas, and Athens is where all of the philosophy of human nature kind of starts. Like, what is being a person? You got Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and then that goes down the line with thinkers that are trying to figure out what the conditions of human nature are, and then that melds with Jerusalem, and effectively Christianity melded with the philosophy of Athens becomes this flourishing society, this civilization that grows into a vast, expansive Roman Empire, which exerts its power and influence all over the world and gives us technological advances that humankind hadn't seen. And then we fast forward to the part that Marco Rubio is talking about over the 500 years of Western civilization and Christianity spreading around the world and things getting better for everybody. But again, AOC says that's very thin. The entirety of humanity and the way that we think about things is very thin. Kind of tear. It's like a piece of paper that you can tear, and it nothing will be intact anymore if Western civilization gets toppled. But it's thin. It's not really there. I could probably go on and on about that, but I do want to get to a lot of this stuff, and I know this is going to eat up a good chunk of time. So, what does AOC kind of respond to that? And again, I recognize that this isn't an actual conversation; it is an actual dialogue. But effectively, this is the response from people like AOC when they talk about why are people drawn to the way that humans have lived for thousands of years? Why is it that way? I think this is the best answer that she could give. And cut 8.
We can't underestimate the appeal of going back to these well-worn grooves. A lot of what we talk about when we talk about a class-based internationalist perspective also means ending the hypocrisy towards the global South.
Okay, so she's then talking about the different class wars, but I think the big point that she pointed out is it's hard to deny. You can't underestimate the appeal of people reverting back to the things that have traditionally worked throughout the scope of history. All of the transgender stuff, all of the woke stuff, which is effectively libs trying to bend human nature or bend reality to fit what they want reality to be, rather than accepting human nature and reality and operating within that. That thing that they continually try to do? Well, first of all, human nature rejects that. But what does that actually mean? Well, people themselves reject that. So what do? We retreat back to the things that we've always known, that have been true throughout the course of history. What she's effectively saying is, look, I understand why some people might think that men and women are two separate things, and the genders zer or z, or the pronouns zip, zap, zem, or whatever it is. I understand why the appeal of pushing that off to the side. But what we can't do is let that happen. We need to continue to promote this class warfare that exists in our heads because we're trying to bend human nature that has existed through the entirety of humanity, bend reality to fit what we want it to be, rather than accept what it is and operate within those confines. Now, what Marco Rubio said in response to that, and again, I have to keep reiterating, I know this is not a conversation and a dialogue, but we're really facing two diametrically opposed ways of looking at the world, visions, as Thomas Sowell might call it, between Marco Rubio's constrained vision of the world that says, hey, there are parameters that we have to operate in, and this is the best way that we've found to operate within those parameters, or the unconstrained vision of AOC that says, anything can be anything, and all of the things are changeable. So anyways, here is Secretary of State Rubio's effective response to that in Cut 9.
An alliance that does not allow its power to be outsourced, constrained, or subordinated to systems beyond its control. One that does not depend on others for the critical necessities of its national life. And one that does not maintain the polite pretense that our way of life is just one among many, and that asks for permission before it acts. And above all, an alliance based on the recognition that we, the West, have inherited together. What we have inherited together is something that is unique and distinctive and irreplaceable.
At the risk of going on too long here, I think that last thing that he said is we are inheritors of a group of people throughout the history of civilized thought who have decided to build on what human nature is, recognizing what it is, and adapting accordingly. Because like you said, and like we've been saying, you can't change reality. You can't alter what human nature is to try and fit what you want the world to be. It's better to want what you can actually have, which is this wealth of Western knowledge that for some reasons libs continue to try and push to the side. Marco Rubio also said many things in the sense of, well, we're not here to manage the decline of Western civilization. We are here to defend it. And what he hopes that all of our European allies would do the same. They wouldn't let third worlders just flood into their countries and upend their culture and upend their society, even though they might bring some tasty food, which also I don't entirely think is true. I think all of the tasty food has been found out, and any of the Somali food that Mayor Jacob Frey was forced to choke down at that restaurant as he moved his spoon around like a toddler. We don't actually need that part of the culture there. But also, the way that people behave, we don't need that necessarily. And what Marco Rubio is trying to say, and what we Westerners are trying to convey to the rest of the world is, hey, this has worked. Look around you. Everything, I mean, obviously there are political disagreements and policy disagreements. And yeah, there's, difficulties within interpersonal relationships, your family at home. But outside of all that, 30,000 feet up, zoom out, everything is pretty dang good. If you were given the choice of, hey, you're going to be born anywhere, but it's going to be any time. If you were to give a choice where you wanted to be born, it would be obviously in the United States of America and right now. But, you could also say a Western country and what right now, because what the West has developed has been unparalleled. I mean, obviously, throughout the course of human history. That is why it's worth defending. We are the inheritors of that civilization built by people who have understood that human nature is unchanging. Unlike someone like AOC. The last little salvo we have here is, I think, past all of this like Western thought, you kind of have to bring it down back to reality of which side here do you want to be on? Just from a, an argumentative standpoint, but from a, this is how we do things standpoint. In one of her talks at the Munich Security Conference, Congresswoman AOC was talking about, well, how do you engage with people who want to promulgate human nature as a real thing? How do you stop this? And what she says, I think, is fascinating. This is cut 10.
It's important to remember that there are more of us than them. And to your earlier question, when you said, what do you say to people who don't know what to do in this time? Every one of us can be sand in the gears of an injustice. And whether it is a delay, whether it is saying no. I think about how all the people in Minneapolis refused to let ICE officers use the bathroom in their establishments. I mean, it's a small thing, but it matters.
So, in effect, she says, hey, we want to stop all of this by really any means necessary. All the way from overthrow of Western civilization to not letting people who are enforcing the laws that libs themselves agreed upon in the last most broad immigration overhaul in 1996, 30 years ago, all the way from the top of overthrowing Western civilization down to not letting those people use the bathroom in your facility. Okay. Well, very, very brief side tangent. I actually would really love the fact if businesses would restrict their bathroom usage. I live in Southern California. I don't really like going into a bathroom and it smells like a homeless person just took a shower in the sink. So that on that one point, I will concede. Maybe bathroom discrimination is good. It's stupid in what they're doing in Minneapolis, but maybe we should broaden that out to, again, include people who don't want to use people like myself who don't want to use bathrooms that are also second to, heroin usage or meth. So there's that. Okay, so do you want to be on the side that says, hey, let's throw sand in the gears? That's literally the terminology that she used. Or do you want to be on the side that says, hey, we got some differences, globally speaking, but we can still work together? This is a presser that Marco Rubio recently gave with the Prime Minister of Slovakia, I believe, in which he was asked by somebody who probably agrees with AOC's worldview, hey, we need to create conflict. We need to create tension. Let's ask them a contentious question. This is how Marco Rubio handled that. Cut 11.
Let me just make one more point, because I think you asked him a question in order to see if you can get him against us with something about, you criticize. A lot of countries didn't like what we did in Venezuela. That's okay. That was in our national interest. I'm sure there's something he'll do one day that we don't like, and we'll say, hey, we didn't like you did this. So what? That doesn't mean we're not going to be friends, we're not going to be partners, we're not going to be able to cooperate with one another. Countries express their opinion all the time. We have very close allies that didn't like what we did in that regard. I can tell you what, it was successful.
So the question, again, posed ultimately at the end of this is, which side do you want to be on? Is the West this thin, very, very fragile? Well, you can make the argument it is pretty fragile, and that's why we need to defend it. But is it this thin, non-justifiable thing that if it goes away, like Marco Rubio said in a clip we played earlier, is the West just another system among many of the other systems that also work? Or is it the system that has promoted the most prosperity for the most people in the most efficient way to become the greatest civilization mankind has ever known? Is Western civilization worth saving? And which side do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the side where the guy says, hey, we did some things, people didn't like some things, but we are a strong and powerful nation, and we can still cooperate on other things, even if you didn't like the big thing that we did? He's specifically there talking about arresting the president of Venezuela, Maduro. He's specifically talking about that, but more broadly speaking, he says, yeah, we can still cooperate. we're going to do what we want to do because what's in our interest is in our interest. And frankly, you can't stop us. But that doesn't mean we can't be friends. Or do you want to be on the side of someone saying, hey, disrupt and don't let anything happen because we think they're mean? I know which side I'm on. But tbt@tpusa.com if you'd like to send along your thoughts there. Is Western civilization worth defending? And I know we didn't cover really, we didn't even scratch the surface of the value of Western civilization because we don't have time to do that here. I just really do think that that is the fundamental question before us right now. Do we want a civilization that is built around the constraints of human nature and operating within those, or this idea that anything can be anything, and there's no moral guide, and there's no actual real tangible thing. It's just all of this floating stuff that isn't organized and chaotic, but we should run the world that way. That wasn't the best description of what they do. Do you believe in something or do you not, is effectively what this is. Let us know, tbt@tpusa.com. Coming up next, we've got Getting to the Point, which again, I still believe that the jingle to that is a little bit abrasive to my rambly personality, but let us know, tbt@tpusa.com. We'll be right back after the break. Don't go away.
This holiday season, Real America's Voice is proud to partner with our friends at Angel Studios for a special giveaway you won't want to miss. As they launch season 2 of their hit series Homestead, we're giving you the chance to win an exclusive Homestead hat absolutely free. Everyone who becomes an Angel Guild member using our link is automatically entered to the contest. When you join, you're supporting meaningful pro-American storytelling, and you're supporting RAV at the same time. Scan the QR code on your screen right now, or text the word RAV Angel to 75802. After you scan or text, make sure you follow the steps provided. When you complete the steps and join the Angel Guild, you'll be automatically entered to win that exclusive Homestead hat, a perfect holiday gift for yourself or someone you love.
Be one of the first 50 people to sign up and win a hat automatically. Hurry while there's still time.
So scan that QR code or text RAV Angel to 75802. Happy holidays from all of us at RAV.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shop. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate today.
Howdy, Rab fans. It's Warbringer here. Love you all. Rab is the only place to get the truth, and this is the only way we're going to be able to restore our republic. Love you all. See you in the chat.
This is Tim King, also known as USS Malik, and I love Real America's Voices for its like-minded programming and the chat. Love you guys.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is a,
Today, Junior!
This is, of course, a very long-standing,
in her defense, strategic ambiguity is a tough word to remember. It's not. It's actually U.S. policy. So this is actually interesting here. I think she was trying to figure out, oh, shoot, there is an actual answer to this based on like how our foreign policy is set. Obviously, she can have her own opinion, but there is a flub up that we all remember when President Biden was on stage and Anderson Cooper asked, like, hey, what are we going to do? And he said, oh, yeah, we'll absolutely defend Taiwan militarily if China ever invades. And Anderson Cooper was like, hold on, what? This is like a major policy decision that, are you announcing something right here? And he was like, I don't know. Because his brain didn't work. Anyways, all of that is to say this, the U.S. has strategic ambiguity. In other words, we won't say whether or not we're going to defend Taiwan militarily, specifically to not allow China to plan based on what our answer is. I don't know if AOC was fighting for that answer or just like fighting to say something, but that was what was that, 40 seconds of, I'm not going to redo it. You all watched it. Good times at the Munich Security Conference. It is time to get to the point.
Get to the point. Get to the point.
Like I said, I think that is like an affront to my overall personality. Saying get to the point. Get to the point is where we cover very briefly but impactfully the top headlines going around. Maybe not even necessarily the top headlines, but interesting headlines going around that we'd like to bring to you, but don't have time to get to for a full segment of the show. So headline number one, point number one, ICE local police deals is up 950% under President Trump. That is from Newsmax. Agreements between the U.S. Customs and Enforcement, ICE, and local law enforcement agencies allowing officers to perform federal immigration within the confines of the municipally run jails or prisons. All of those programs collaboratively have surged 950% in the first year, reaching 1,168 participating agencies as of last month. I mean, this is the whole sanctuary city thing. This is like we're not going to cooperate. Looks like you are, which is great. The Supreme Court really does need to rule on this, and I think they're going to. I'm hoping for a broad, sweeping no, you can't, not some like super narrow SCOTUS decision that says, well, technically under this rule, this is wrong here. I hope there's a broad, like sanctuary states are like sanctuary cities or sanctuary municipalities anywhere, and I use sanctuary in quotes, are not allowed. I hope that's what happens. But even if it isn't, ultimately it's a super narrow decision. This is good. 950% increase in agencies that are saying, yeah, we'll go ahead and comply with the federal law, which is crazy to have to think about. Point number two, Jeffries, the minority speaker of the House minority leader, which I found out is not a racial thing. It's actually who has the minority of votes in the House. So libs currently have less than the majority, which is the conservatives in the House of Representatives. I always thought that being the minority leader was a pretty racist thing to say, honestly. Turns out it's actually the people who have the less votes. And if you don't know whether or not I'm kidding, I'm not. I didn't actually know. Jeffries, the minority leader, goes all in on gerrymandering. House control on the line. CNN is the source. Now, this is actually going to be really interesting. The Supreme Court has upheld effectively California's incredibly gerrymandered districts. I tend to be of the mind that, hey, that's going to blow back in your face. And I also say this with, conservative districts that are like, hey, this is a 30-point swing, so let's narrow it down to a 10-point swing so we're still going to effectively and reliably win this seat, but we can also shift that extra 20% into another district that we can also win there. That's effectively what gerrymandering is. I, as a guy who's run campaigns for a decent amount of time, I guess had run campaigns for a decent amount of time, would say, hey, you just closed the gap in a totally non-winnable area. And I think this is on both sides of the political spectrum. I don't think this is necessarily the long-term win that you might think. Specifically in California, some of those districts, yes, they've effectively taken away or taken the conservative constituency out of some of the red districts and put them into more reliable districts. But those votes don't change, right? All you've done is effectively narrow the gap just a little bit more and put it in reach of conservatives in California who want a voice. In other words, yeah, maybe it doesn't go the right way this cycle, but long term, what you've just done is effectively made races way more competitive for people who didn't feel like they had a chance. And again, I know Texas is doing the same thing on the conservative side. I don't know that politically speaking that's the best move, but bottom line is the libs are going all in on the gerrymandering. They're pushing initiatives in Georgia as well as a couple other states in kind of reaction to what's going on in Texas and California. But like I said, long term, I'm not entirely sure that it is going to be a good play for really either whatever side is doing it in whatever respective state. Not exactly sure if that's going to be the best bet here. Next point. Female athletes hit back at weird and derogatory comments about their appearance. Female international athletes, including a Welsh rugby player, a gymnast, a soccer player, they call it footballer because this headline is from the BBC, have spoken to the BBC about receiving weird and derogatory comments criticizing their appearance. Backlash has been received. Bottom line, and I think the main point of this and the main idea as to why bringing this on makes sense is that a Women in Sports survey recently cited articles revealing a decline in girls' aspirations to professional sports career from 38% to 23%. In other words, the amount of women who want to compete in sports is going down, to which I say, why would that possibly be the case? Is it because people are being mean about their appearances? Or is it the fact that it's dangerous because dudes are playing? Email us, tpt@tpusa.com if you have any reason to believe why could this possibly be happening? I am just dumbfounded. You know, I happen to believe that that I'm not even. Email us, tpt@tpusa.com if you have any guesses as to why women may not be wanting to participate in sports at the level that they once were. And again, I just happen to, there's no way that it's the dudes that are beating up on the women. That's the reason, but I could be wrong. Let us know if you think I'm wrong, that actually is a huge variable in that. On to the next point. Influencer claims that Billie Eilish got him deported from the U.S., over a joke about her ICE criticism. Remember when Billie Eilish, the singer, went up on the Grammys and did this whole thing of nobody's illegal on stolen land? Someone's like, hey, you own a big house on stolen land. So this guy says, well, I'm going to move into your house. And he didn't, by the way, just for the record. That's just an online comment pointing out the fact that what she said was ridiculous. Anyway, apparently this guy was from Australia, and he says, writing in a social media post, I think her legal team called DHS. Honestly, the agents were super nice and laughed about it, but there was nothing I could do. Then he said, maybe the evil leftists are still in charge of the bureaucracy, but he effectively, he was at LAX airport, I guess, and got detained. And I don't know if he actually has been deported and sent out of the country, but he believes that Billie Eilish's lawyers called ICE or called immigration and said, hey, this guy's not here legally, get him out, which is so hilariously ironic that, it's hard to bear. Unconfirmed whether or not that actually happened, but that's what he thinks happened. On to the next point, and the last point wrapping up. Obama clarifies alien comments after telling podcasts that they are real. Regardless of what this says, he said he was trying to match the spirit of the speed round. I don't happen to believe that to be true. I think that what Barack Obama said was what he meant. This, I believe, is cut 12. This is what he said, and now he's trying to backtrack.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in what is it?
Area 51.
Area 51. There's no underground facility unless there's this enormous conspiracy and they hid it from the President of the United States.
What was the first question you wanted answered when you became president?
Where are the aliens?
Where are the aliens?
So there is former President Barack Obama confirming beyond all reasonable doubt that there are, in fact, aliens. And the fact that he said, well, they're not being kept at Area 51 makes me think they're probably being kept at Area 51. I think that confirms a lot more than what President Obama thinks he said. That's probably why he's trying to backtrack. No. I was just participating in the spirit of the speed round by saying something that we're all curious about. Well, that'll do it for wrapping up the point, or what is it? Get to the point. Appreciate you sticking around. Coming up next, we've got another one of our fantastic segments called Official Business, where we go around the political world to elected officials and bureaucrats alike and discuss what they have said during official business. TPT@TPUSA.com is the email address. We'll be right back after the break. Don't go away.
Exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol. They need to take back our country.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.
January 6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted.
Seditious conspiracy.
But behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
I think what we identify is that in a rules-based order, hypocrisy is vulnerability. And so I think what we are seeking is a return to a rules-based order that eliminates the hypocrisies around when too often in the West we look the other way for inconvenient populations to act out these paradoxes.
What's difficult about the paradoxes of Western minority groups is that the paradoxes that exist within that paradox are much more of a bureaucratic paradox than a paradox that, unfortunately, is Kamala Harris like in this lady's ear telling her what to say here? I'm not entirely sure what that was. Interestingly enough, I watched it enough times where I do know what she means, and she's also wrong on that front too. But just get to the point, which I realize is ironic for me to say to another person, which is why we have a whole segment built out of get to the freaking point. But also, Congresswoman, get to the freaking point. All right, it is time for one of my favorite things that we have added to the show. When legislators and bureaucrats alike speak with authority on a platform that they've been given to by the people of this country, it is official business. Starting off with official business, we have a dude in a dress. Producer Glenn is rolling his eyes, thinking that, dang it, now we got to take it off of YouTube. But we have to talk about this. This is Sarah McBride, who is a dude in a dress, also with a congressional vote for some reason. Ironically discussing trans people with a bunch of women. So, well, I'll save the irony, the overwhelming irony till afterward. But I want you to watch this clip. It's rather long, but it's a lot in it worth discussing, which unfortunately we probably don't have time to get to most of it. But this is cut 13.
There is no question in the United States that after
decades of historic progress on gender equality writ large, and specifically more recently on LGBTQ rights, that we are facing, as you mentioned, a well-organized, well-funded, right-wing regressive movement. And they really have placed trans people at the center of that effort, but we should be clear that the consequences of this anti-trans effort, not only out of proximity, but out of intentionality, will include consequences for women of all backgrounds. Because at the end of the day, transphobia, homophobia, misogyny, and sexism are all rooted in the same prejudice. The belief that one perception at birth should dictate who you are, how you act, what you do, who you love, and how you dress. And it's why threats toward trans people are threats toward all women.
Before I get into my actually what I think is a very interesting take, the one observation at birth, fun fact, your anatomy stays with you through the duration of your life. unless of course you get it chopped off, or in even worse cases, your parents are blinded by woke ideology and chop it off for you. That it's not just an observation at birth. You can observe it throughout the duration of life. But here's what I think is actually maybe a hot take, and it may take a little bit longer than maybe we won't get to the rest of the stuff, but now we will. I actually think that this is a good thing. Not in the sense of like, I agree with what this guy is saying, but in the sense of if libs are beholden to the strategy that the woke, crazy trans people are doing, which is tying those two ideas together, the ideas being, women's rights or minority rights in general, tying themselves, hitching their wagon to that, I think that bodes well for conservatives, right? The left has or needs to have an objective of separating the LGB with the TQIA plus whatever. What the crazy wokes, the trans advocates like the guy in a dress, Sarah McBride, what they're doing is they're trying to hitch their wagon to things that we do agree on. We agree that, hey, your skin color shouldn't dictate the rights that you have. This country is created for all different types of people of all kinds. We all agree on that. We agree on, well, at least we should agree that this country shouldn't be based on race. It should be a value set of an ideal. We are founded by a creed, not by a racial makeup, which is actually very unique in the course of human history. We won't go down that rabbit hole at this time. But because we agree that, they try to manipulate it. The trans rights people try to manipulate it in such a way, okay, well, this is all the same thing, right? Women's rights, minority rights are all the same as trans rights. No, they are freaking not. And it's actually a really clever way of trying to tie things in together that the trans people are trying to use to manipulate, well, all of their lib friends who are very, very easily manipulated. And when I say I like that, it's because it makes our arguments actually easier. It makes our arguments to go, hey, that right here, all of the woke racial stuff is tied to the trans stuff by their own doing. Now, again, like I said, I think people should be equal, but equity is a terrible thing. It's effectively communism. So if you're trying to force the same outcomes for different races, it's just not going to happen. You get less freedom and less prosperity. Both of those things decline. So when they're trying to push things on a racial basis, but then tying it to trans people, that just makes our arguments easier to make. So I like it in the sense, not that I agree with anything that he said, but I like it because it makes their arguments harder to make when you have the alphabet community that goes after the LGB, and that's aside from what you think about the LGB right now, the TQIA, two-spirit plus whatever, all being combined into one thing actually makes their arguments harder. Dave Chappelle had a great stand-up bit where he effectively says, the alphabet community is driving together in a car, and the T is sitting in the back saying, I have to go to the bathroom. And it's like, hey, all of the other alphabet people are like, you're making this trip take way longer. And, for that, I approve. because of my outlook on the world. Dang, that is all the official. We will. There is more official business that we didn't play today that we will play tomorrow. Because I thought that point from McBride there, Congress McBride was worth explaining just a little bit, but we'll get to that official business tomorrow. Coming up after the break, a very, very brief but very, very important update on America. It has no political weight whatsoever, but it is, in my opinion, very, very important, and I believe it'll be very, very important to you as well. As well as our mailbag, tpt@tpusa.com if you have any emails, thoughts, comments, concerns, criticisms of the show. We'll be right back after the break. Don't go away.
Exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol. They need to take back our country.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.
January 6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted.
Seditious conspiracy.
But behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This is not the story you were shown.
I take responsibility.
This is the story they live.
Government entrapment scheme that this actually was.
The J6 Patriots are no longer staying silent. They are speaking, they are standing, and they are telling the truth.
You can't kill us. You can't beat us.
Scan the QR code or visit RealAmericasVoice.com. Real America's Voice presents The Sleeping Giant. Available now. Now is the moment to put your brand in front of an engaged, loyal audience through Real America's Voice. When you advertise on Real America's Voice, you're not just running an ad, you're partnering with trusted voices like Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and other influential hosts. Backed by millions of monthly listeners.
What's happening? Because of a real voice, man. I watch it all the time.
Real America's Voice rocks.
What laws were changed in the last 12 months that made it so that we went from the most open border in American history, hundreds of thousands of people coming to this country illegally every month, to virtually zero? What laws did we pass? I want you to give credit to Congress for acting to pass these incredible laws that resulted in this decrease.
No laws were passed, sir. Nothing new.
Wait, what? No laws were passed?
No new laws were passed.
So that's Senator Bernie Moreno. I love this type of thing. I'm a big fan of exploiting the absurdities by simple, rational questions. Not, hey, we're following the law, which is true. If you're saying, hey, we're just following the law, that is entirely true. But I like the sarcastic, satirical take of, I want to give credit to Congress for passing these brand new spanking clean laws that we didn't have before. And you guys being able to enact that, and then forcing the witness there, who I'm sure is a friendly, to say, no new laws actually got passed. Oh, you mean so we're just enforcing the law from 30 years ago that libs agreed on? Yes, sir, that is the case. All right, in the very, very brief time we have here, this is apropos of nothing. I just saw this headline, and I needed to bring it to you because I do think wherever you live in this country, this will impact your life possibly even greatly, possibly something that you do multiple times a year if you're the certain kind of person that does this sort of thing. I think this will affect people everywhere for the better. Costco launched a mobile app for ordering their custom cakes and deli trays, easing customer woes. If you don't know this, if you're, not a Costco member, in other words, anti-American, but I'm a Sam's Club member and they're basically the same thing. Wrong. If you're a Costco member, you know that in order to order a sheet cake or a deli platter or whatever, you have to go into the store and then fill out a paper and then send it in, and then it'll be ready, whatever day it is. You have to be physically in the store, which is a total antiquated way of thinking about things. They're now rolling out the fact that you can order remotely. There have been several people who've been like, yeah, well, the closest Costco to me, they have the cheapest desserts. It's the best. But they are 45 minutes away. I don't want to drive 45 minutes to order my cake and then 2 days later drive 45 minutes back to Costco. This is a major announcement by, in my opinion, the best warehouse retailer. If you happen to disagree, if you happen to be a Sam's Club person, that's fine. I guess we're a big tent party. You can join us in the conservative movement, but you're wrong. You're just wrong. TPT@TPUSA.com if you think I'm wrong. I'm excited because generally stuff like this is when we get the most emails. We get like 30 emails saying, you idiot, Sam's Club is so much better. And I appreciate and I tolerate all of you folks who send those emails, even though unfortunately you're wrong. Our mailbag segment will be coming up right after the break. If you'd like to be included, TPT@TPUSA.com. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
Exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol. They need to take back our country.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.
January 6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted.
Seditious conspiracy.
But behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This is not the story you were shown.
I take responsibility.
This is the story they live.
Government entrapment scheme that this actually was.
The J6 Patriots are no longer staying silent. They are speaking, they are standing, and they are telling the truth.
You can't kill us. You can't beat us.
Scan the QR code or visit RealAmericasVoice.com. Real America's Voice presents The Sleeping Giant. Available now. Now is the moment to put your brand in front of an engaged, loyal audience through Real America's Voice. When you advertise on Real America's Voice, you're not just running an ad, you're partnering with trusted voices like Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and other influential hosts. Backed by millions of monthly listeners.
What's happening? Because of a real voice, man. I watch it all the time.
Real America's Voice rocks.
You're going to go into that building an American, and you're going to come out a Canadian.
I'm going to go into that building an American, and I'm going to come out a Canadian.
Nolan and Bandit. Theodore! All right, big smiles, everyone. Smile here. Hello. How does it feel to be Canadian?
It feels great. I feel like instantly changed. You know, on the drive home, I was letting everyone in front of me. And then we went to go get lunch, and it was completely crowded, so I was like, I'll come back. And I just, I've fully embraced being a Canadian already.
So that's interesting. Mostly because, especially here in California, I've been told my entire life that being gay is not a choice. But clearly, I can just sign up at the whatever the Canadian. I kid. That's a bunch of libs. I am for that, by the way. If you are a lib who hates this country and wants to move to Canada, let me know how I can chip into your GoFundMe account. As long as you promise to leave and relinquish your U.S. citizenship and live in America's hat, I'll help support that decision of yours for a multitude of reasons. But adios. Which they don't say in Canada because they don't have the crazy rampant South American illegal immigration. All right, get mailbag. Let's get before we go off the Canadian rails here. Jim and Marlene, on the topic of voting, said this: had to open up a new bank account. I needed a birth certificate, a marriage license showing my new married name, and a driver's license. You need 3 freaking forms of ID to open a bank account. That's absolutely what you should need in order to vote. I think you should prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you're able to vote in this country. And if you can't prove it, then I guess you don't want to vote very much. That's not my problem. Good point. Opening a bank account. Amy says this: what happened to the Minnesota fraud investigation? Went dead. Amy, I think it did not go dead in reality. I think online people have moved to different things. They've navigated around to different issues that people are talking about. But in reality, I think the Minnesota fraud investigation is still very, very much alive. And I think give it a little while, give it a couple months, and I can almost guarantee you the Trump administration is not going to let that one go. I don't think they should do this. I don't agree with holding off announcements right before elections. But if I were to cynically make a guess here, that's probably when you're going to see, hey, a couple $1 billion got stolen from you by these people in charge. Also, best of luck in November. Make sure you show your ID. I don't like that. But also, if I were to make a bet, I don't know. Let's see. On the topic of the Olympics, Scott says, anyone bad-mouthing the U.S. should be off the team. No whiny little B words. And he's talking about the men as well. That is one of the things. There's so many different thoughts we can expand to on this, Scott. I appreciate that. Here's what I'll say about this. The only time Olympic athletes are asked questions about the politics of their country is when the conservatives in the White House. There were 2 Olympics, 2022 and 2024, when President Biden was in office. And did anybody ask, hey, how do you feel about the president's dementia? No, nobody even was asked the question. So yeah, shut up and ski. I was going to say dribble, but it's ski. That's going to do it for us here at Turning Point tonight. See you tomorrow, same time, same place. God bless America.
Exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol.